Hello students, again I am here to explain you the remaining portion of chapter 2. That day I told you that we will start from page 10. Actually in PDF it is showing as page 10, but in your book it is page number 27. So if you have bought your book, it is page number 27. We are starting now. The topic is how to create more employment. Actually on that day we have discussed different problems of rural sector, mainly the prevalence of disguised unemployment or hidden unemployment, where apparently it looks that everybody is working, but in actual everybody is not working. If some of the workforce is removed or some of the workers are removed, then also the total product remains the same. This situation is known as disguised unemployment or underemployment. Why it is called underemployment? Because the full potential or full potentiality or the full working capacity of an worker is not completely utilized. That is what it is called underemployment or disguised unemployment. Now the topic here, it is showing in bold letter how to create more employment. That means what are the procedures which government can take to create more employment opportunities in both rural sector and or in urban sector also. First, let us discuss rural sector. It is a very popular question in 10th board, that how to create more employment opportunities in rural area or in urban area. Here one example is there. I think you remember I have given you the example of Lakshmi, who was having 2 hectares of land, unirrigated land. So she is able to cultivate or to do farming in her land only in rainy season. What the government can do, government can provide her or government can help her by giving her fund to construct a well in her land, so that she can irrigate her land, and during the Rabi season she can cultivate other crops also. Let us suppose government is giving her fund to construct a well in her land, and she is able to cultivate in Rabi season also wheat, gehu. So obviously in Rabi season and Kharif season, in both the seasons she is able to cultivate her land. So throughout the year she is getting employment. And if we assume that 1 hectare of wheat can provide employment to 2 people for 50 days, अगर हम ये एज्यूम करें कि 1 हेक्टर गेहूं प्रोडक्शन के लिए उसकी फैमिली में दो लोगों को 50 दिन की काम मिल जाएगा. सो शी इज हैविंग 2 hectares of land. दैट मीन्स कम से कम 4 people of our family will get employment for 50 days. So in this way the problem of unemployment or non-availability of work will be sorted out. Next, so this is the way the government can help the small farmers or the marginal farmers. And suppose obviously the government can help in generation of new dams. Government can invest in constructing new dams, roads. Government can help in proper transportation in the villages, and in those works also the villagers will be employed, and they will be getting jobs, they will be getting some income. And Lakshmi and other farmers, if they are having the irrigational facilities from the wells constructed in the villages or the hand pumps constructed in the villages, then there will be surplus production in the land which can be sold in the market. Now obviously if the farmers, they want to sell their crops or they want to sell their commodities in the market, For that, transportation is needed. Now obviously then transport sector that needs to be developed, proper roads should be there, proper transport should be there. So in construction of roads also the villagers can be employed. Along with that, in transport sector also, that means somebody should be there to drive the transport, to drive the trucks and all that, trucks or jeeps and all that. So the drivers also will get some work. So in this way employment opportunities can be increased. And Lakshmi's problem is not only confined to water alone. Obviously her land is unirrigated land, but her problem is not confined to water alone. She is having other problems also. She is suffering from limitations of fund, shortage of fund. She needs to buy seeds, she needs to buy fertilizer, she needs to buy other agricultural equipments and pump sets to draw water, and for that she has to go to, or she needs to take loan from large farmer Tejpal Singh. But the thing is that if government is able to give cheap agricultural credit to the small farmers, or if the government is able to arrange cheap agricultural credit to the small and marginal farmers in the form of village cooperatives or some agricultural credit societies, then these farmers will be free from the clutches of the money lenders. They don't have to go to money lenders. They can get loan at a very cheap interest rate from those agricultural credit societies created by the government, and which the interest rate will also be very low, which they can repay in time. These are the various ways the government can help them. And another way with which the government can help, government can set up small scale industries in rural areas. Suppose the government can set up sugar mills, government can set up dal mills in rural areas, so that the villagers will be benefited. They will get work in those mills. The farmers can sell their crops, like for sugar mill, the sugar cane they can sell to the sugar mill. They can sell their pulses to the sugar mill. So obviously farmers will also be benefited, and at the same time the villagers or other villagers also will get the benefit of getting additional job opportunities. And in this way the government can help generation of employment opportunities in rural areas. And come to the end of page number 28. Here see the line. Do you know that in India 46.9% of population belongs to the age group 5 to 29 years. In our country 46.9% of the population belongs to the age group of 5 to 29 years. And out of this 52% are only attending educational institutions. Means only 52% children are attending school. The rest are not attending school. They may be at home, or some of them may be working as child laborers to some farms or to some tea shops and all that. Now come to next page number, this is page number I think 29. Come to this page. Now these children, if these children are to attend school, see here the line, we will require more buildings, more teachers and other staff. That means only 52% are attending school. 48% are not attending school. So if government wants to create schooling facilities, at least for primary schooling facilities to those 48%, so more schools, more college buildings and other stuffs are required. So there will be again creation of 20 lakh job opportunities. Similarly, if we want to improve the health infrastructure in our country, the government wants to improve the health infrastructure in our country, the government needs, or we need, more doctors, nurses, health workers. So again, in rural areas as well as in urban areas, job opportunities will be created. So in this way, so many job opportunities can be created by the government. Next, every state or every region are having some specialty. Some states are very good in tourism. They can develop their tourism sector. They can develop their regional craft industries, or they can even develop their IT services. So obviously, region to region or state to state, new job opportunities can be created. It is said that, see here the line, for example, the same study by the Planning Commission says that if tourism as a sector is improved, every year we can give additional employment to more than 35 lakh people. That means if tourism sector can be developed in our country, additional employment or additional job opportunities of 35 lakh can be created in India. So many options are there which the government can adopt. So many measures are there which the government can adopt to create additional employment opportunities in rural as well as in urban areas. But obviously, this will take, or to facilitate this kind of extra employment opportunities, it requires a huge time. But if the government wants to provide instant employment opportunities, then the government needs to do something else. For that, see here, one line is there. See here, one line is there. Right to work in 200 districts of India. Right to work. Government initiated an act which is known as Right to Work. First it was implemented in 200 districts of India, and then it was implemented in additional 130 districts. The remaining districts in rural areas were brought under the act with effect from 1st April 2008. It is known as, in bold letter it is written, National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005, which is called as NREGA 2005. Government under this Right to Work Act initiated this campaign, NREGA. This act was taken in 2005, where it was opined that, or it was suggested that, all those, see the line over here, all those who are able to and are in need of work are guaranteed 100 days of employment in a year by the government, which means that those who are able to do manual work, this act is National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. That means this act is meant for the rural area, and in rural area people are able to do manual work. So it is for those people who are able to do manual work and those who need actually work, they are guaranteed 100 days of employment in a year. 100 दिनों का काम कोई भी विलेज में हर एक फैमिली से एक मेंबर को 100 दिनों का काम कम से कम साल में मिलेगा, and it is under this act. This type of work, obviously this type of work or this type of program which are taken by the government obviously provides more employment opportunities to the people of rural area in India. Next, we are coming under division of sectors as organized and unorganized sector. See here, one example is there, Kanta. Just one example of Kanta is there and another example of Kamal is there. Kanta, what she does, she works in an office. She attends her office from 9:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. That means Kanta is working in an office where she is working from 9:30 to 5:30. That means for 8 hours she is working. When she joined her job, she got an appointment letter from her employer. In addition to her salary, she gets a salary after every month, after completion of her job at the end of the month. That means at the end of every month she gets her salary in time. At the same time, she is getting, apart from her salary, she is getting provident fund, she is getting gratuity. These are the extra benefits she is getting. Provident fund is what? It is a lump sum amount which an worker gets after his or her retirement. Apart from that, she is also getting medical and other allowances. And every Sunday, it is her off day and she gets her paid leave, paid holiday, that is. So, she is working in a very good employment condition. Now let's look at the example of Kamal. Kamal is Kanta's neighbor. Now he is a daily wage laborer in a nearby grocery shop. एक किराने की दुकान में वो काम करता है and she goes there at 7:30 in the morning and works until 8 p.m. in the evening. That means more than 12 hours he is working. For this more than 12-hour work, she does not get any extra allowance apart from her daily wages. Whenever since he is a daily wager, whenever he is absent from his work, he does not get his salary. He does not get his payment. He does not have any medical leave. He does not have any Sunday, any off day. When he joined his work, he did not get any appointment letter. He can be asked to leave any time by his employer. That means he can be sacked or removed from his job any time by his employer. So there are two workers we have talked recently. Who are they? One is Kanta. Kanta is working in an office and she is getting every benefit from that office. She has to work only 8 hours. She is getting her medical benefits every month, full salary, every Sunday paid holiday. She is getting medical benefits, and if she works for extra hours, she is getting paid for that overtime. But that does not happen with Kamal. He is a daily laborer who is working more than 12 hours. You can say 12 or 30 minutes, 12.5 घंटा वो काम करता है. But for that work, he is not getting any extra payment. When he is absent from his work, He is not getting his payment for that particular day. He does not get any sick leave, he does not get any medical benefit, even he is not having any appointment letter from his employer. So these are two different situations. The workplace where Kanta is working, that workplace is known as organized sector, or that workplace belongs to organized sector based on the working conditions. Two different types of sectors are there. One is organized sector and another one is unorganized sector. Organized sector is that sector where, see here the particulars are given over here. Organized sectors, workers in organized sector enjoy security of employment. See the points. Then see, and they are expected to work only fixed number of hours. If they work more, they have to be paid overtime by the employer. They also get several other benefits from the employers. That means what? In organized sector, the workers are getting so many benefits. They have to work only for a fixed number of hours. If they are working more than that fixed number of hours, they are getting overtime. That means they are getting extra payment. They are also getting some extra benefits in the form of medical allowance. They are also getting provident funds. They are also, come to the next page, they are also getting every Sunday off. That means paid holidays they are getting sick leaves. And see the line over here, the factory manager has to ensure facilities like drinking water and a safe working environment. When they retire, these workers get pension as well, which means that along with special benefits like medical allowance, paid holidays, like extra payment in the form of overtime, these organized sector workers, they are getting facilities like drinking water, safe working environment, proper sanitation facilities. Apart from that, when they retire from their job, they are getting pensions also. And these organized sector, that means organized sector is that sector which is registered under the government, and they have to follow certain rules and regulations fixed by the government. In contrast, the unorganized sector is characterized by, see the line over here in bold line it is written, the unorganized sector is characterized by small and scattered units which are largely outside the control of the government. These are the rules and regulations, but these are not followed. There are rules and regulations, but these are not followed. That means obviously for unorganized sectors also government has imposed some rules and regulations, but they are not followed because they are not under the control of the government. Where organized sectors are under the control of the government because they are registered sectors under the government, unorganized sectors, they are not under the direct control of the government, and that's why they are not following any rules and regulations. The workers are low paid and workers are not regular. Their jobs are insecure. Whenever their employers want, they can remove them or they can throw them out from their job. There is no provision of overtime. They may be compelled or forced to work for extra hours, but for those extra hours of work, they are not getting any extra payment, they are not getting any paid leave, they are not getting any medical benefits, they are not getting any holidays. Whenever they are absent from their work, they are not getting any payment for that particular day. So these are the two sectors, organized sectors and unorganized sector, which are characterized or which are differentiated on the basis of the working conditions and on the basis of the control of the government. In rural area, the farmers, specifically the landless farmers, the landless laborers, the small farmers, the marginal farmers, they are coming under this unorganized sector. And in urban areas, the casual laborers, the vendors, the rag pickers, the rickshaw pullers, they are coming under the unorganized sector. So today we have completed until this one, page number 31. In my next class we will do the remaining portion of the chapter.